I really hope that I'm in focus. Here we are. Hello, welcome to a new video. It is time to talk about my best books of 2024, the best reads of the last year. I had an incredible reading year. I had more 5 stars than I think I have ever had before. I'm pretty sure in my best books of 2023, I mentioned how I'd only had like 9 5 stars or something silly. I had many 5-star reads in 2024, so I have had to narrow this down and I have got you my top 10 reads of 2024 and I have ranked them. I don't think a lot of these are going to surprise you. I think a lot of these are going to be exactly what you think they're going to be. Maybe some of the latter half might not, but the top 5, if you hadn't guessed them, I would be surprised. But yeah, top 10 reads ranked from number 10 to number 1 of 2024. You know how this works, so let us get on with it. Coming in 10th place, I have got How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying. This has a very dark sense of humour. So trigger warnings for suicide, death, murder, self-harm, lots of trigger warnings for this one, but it's all in a dark, humorous kind of way. This one follows a woman called Davy. And Davy has lived the same storyline over and over and over again. She wakes up, she is in peril, a wizard comes to save her, she has to lead the good side against the Dark Lord, and she fails every single time. She is tortured, she is killed, she just fails and everything falls to pieces around her. So on one of her reawakenings, she decides, you know what, I'm sick of losing. I'm gonna become the Dark Lord. If the Dark Lord always wins, I'm sick of losing. Let's try it on that side. And of course, it takes her a few attempts, but every time she dies, she starts the story again. This was just my kind of humour. As I say, dark humour, definitely, but I thoroughly enjoyed my time with this. I really loved the tone. I can appreciate how this would not be for everybody. The humour, the tone, the darkness, definitely not everyone's cup of tea, but I thoroughly enjoyed this one, and of course, it got 5 stars. All of the books I'm going to talk about here got 5 stars. But yeah, if you've got kind of a dark, twisted sense of humour and the idea of a really sweary, foul-mouthed, slightly suicidal main character who's just going along for the ride is something that you could enjoy, I recommend. Coming in at number 9, we are switching tune quite rapidly from humour to very serious. We have got Blood over Brighthaven. This is the self-published edition. I know that the traditionally published edition has come out recently. I haven't read that version. I've read the self-pubbed version. I don't know if there are any differences. But this follows Siona, who is the brightest young woman. She is incredibly smart and she wants to prove that as a woman she can achieve as much as the men around her. She has devoted all of her life to the study of magic to eventually become a high mage, the first ever high mage female. So there's a whole lot of female rage in here as we see the world from Siona's eyes, where the men around her look down on her so very much and treat her so very small. But also, on the flip side of that, we see a lot of Siona's privilege of being a person from Tiryn, which is the city that this is set in. And when Siona is studying her magic, she is given a janitor as a, assistant, because they don't believe she deserves a proper assistant because she's a woman, of course. And the janitor is another perspective we get from this. His name is Tomil, and he was a nomadic hunter from beyond the borders of this magical city of Tiryn. And Siona gradually discovers what life is like for the people outside of the border of her magical city, how they achieve the things that they achieve, and who suffers as a consequence of that. This is such an incredible book. M.L. Wang is an incredible author, and the exploration of privilege and extreme lack of privilege, colonization, exploitation, power. There is a lot that gets unpacked in this book, and it punches you in the gut, and I absolutely loved it. 5 stars, obviously. Coming in at number 8 on my list, we have got Sons of Darkness by Gaurav Mohanty. I am so excited to continue this series. This is an epic fantasy that has all of the things that I adore, and it has all of the things that I adore done so very well. Political, epic, prophecies, rebellions, assassins, betrayals, alliances, all of these things are in this book. In this world, there used to be devas, there used to be magic, there used to be power that has long since disappeared. And now we are experiencing the fight between the Empire and the Republic. But they soon realise that all the gold in the world can't buy them all the alliances that they need, and that there are a lot of other players on this political board, and it's only going to become more complicated when a pirate princess gets herself involved, naive queens from other lands, priests that think that they know best. There's a political marriage that plays a very large part in the overall plot of this book, and all the while throughout it, we get little glimpses of the prophecy. There's these little dark patches throughout the book, on the darker pages, which takes us to, I can't remember exactly what her name is, but she's matron of some kind, and she sees a vision, she sees a prophecy of the rise of the Son of Darkness. So whilst we're watching all of the battles and politics and so on unfold, we also know that there is something sinister in the background, and the Son of Darkness is on the rise. But who is the Son of Darkness? It was so much fun to piece this together, because we would have the prophecy from the matron's perspective, and then we would have a whole section of the actual story, and I could like pinpoint, like, oh, she mentioned something about an eagle, and that guy has an eagle on his emblem, like, is he the eagle from the prophecy? Oh, that guy was mentioned something about, I don't know, blue fire, and he's got a weapon that has some blue, is that him? And like piecing it together, it was so much fun to do that, and I was so absorbed in this story. I absolutely loved it. This is epic political fantasy done so well, and I cannot wait to continue this series. 5 stars, obviously. Brilliant, brilliant book. Coming in at number 7 on my list, we have got The Fragile Threads of Power by V. Schwab. Are you a little bit surprised that this isn't higher on my list? You might be. This is the next book in the world of the Shades of Magic trilogy, the Threads of Power trilogy. This will be. We are back with some of our familiar characters from the Shades of Magic series. We've got Kel, we've got Lila, we've got Rai, we've got Alucard. But we've also got Tess, who is a brand new character to this world, who is able to see the threads of power. And with rebellion rising in Red London and magic not being as strong as it once was, the power of a girl who can see the threads and weave them back together, especially considering the situations that some of our characters end up in, with their power being definitely not what it once was. She could be an important ally for them, or she could be valuable to the opposition who are rising in Red London. This was fantastic. It's V. Schwab. I love V. Schwab, and the Shades of Magic series from her is my favourite world. Delilah Bard is one of my favourite characters of all time. I absolutely love her. I know she's not everybody's cup of tea, but she is absolutely mine. I adore her. So going back to this world, seeing those characters, seeing where they are now, how things have developed since the end of the original Shades trilogy, how the world has developed and the politics at play and the magic. I just loved being back here and exploring things also from Tessa's perspective as well, and how Tess sees those characters, because obviously we're not in their perspectives, we're seeing things from Tessa's perspective. It kind of shines a different light on them as well. I absolutely loved it. I will continue, I think, to love everything that Schwab puts out, so not a shocker with this one. Loved it very much. 5 stars. Coming in at number 6 on my list is Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This broke my heart into a million pieces and made me bawl. I feel like a lot of people already know what this one is about. It's a very popular one, but Before the Coffee Gets Cold is about a cafe, and this cafe is something of legend because the tale goes that if you sit in a particular chair in this cafe and have a cup of coffee, you can travel back in time to a specific memory of the past. But there are rules. You have to sit in the specific chair. You can only stay in the chair in that memory, so you can only be visited by people who have also been to the cafe. You cannot leave the cafe. And you have to drink the coffee before it gets cold to return to the present day, otherwise you will become a ghost. As we know, 2024 has been the year where I have fallen in love with healing fiction, and this is definitely one of those. And in typical healing fiction fashion, each chapter follows a different visitor to the cafe where they need to go back in time to overcome something, to relive a memory, to have a conversation with someone again, to see someone for one last time, so on and so forth. And the visit to the past helps them to overcome or achieve whatever it is that they needed to do. But at the same time in this one, we also have the overarching plot of the people who run the cafe, which is a constant throughout all of the littler stories of the visitors, and it just stabbed me in the heart, and I sobbed and then continued the series and have continued to love it. Beautiful, beautiful book. And I can't believe it took me so long to get to it, because I know that this has been doing the rounds for a while, but here we are. Coming in at number 5 on my list is Ragnar Crimson. I've put volume 1 because I have read all of Ragnar Crimson up to volume 11, and I loved all of them. They are all fantastic. I have absolutely fallen in love with this story. This is a story of dragons. Dragons and dragon slayers. We follow our main character, Ragnar, who, to begin with, is not a great dragon slayer at all, but he absolutely must protect this girl, Leo. She is everything to him. However, she is an incredible dragon hunter, so it doesn't seem like she needs much protection from Ragnar, but Ragnar is determined to become the best dragon hunter there is in order to protect Leo. The story takes a turn. There are lots of dragons that do deserve hunting. You know how sometimes with dragon hunting stories it's like, oh, but dragons are so great, why do you want to kill them all? These are shape-shifting dragons that want to wipe out humanity to give the world to their dragon god. So these dragons, they gotta go. They're not nice. They are evil pieces of work. And Ragnar teams up with Crimson, giving us Ragnar Crimson, to take down the dragons and the dragon god. Fantastic, fantastic story. I absolutely fell in love with this manga series. This was kind of a surprise. I read this one during my Jadeyraereads manga challenge, where Gavin picked out a manga for every letter of my name, and he hadn't even read this one. It was just a surprise that he thought sounded right up my street, and it was, and has become my favourite manga series, and I cannot wait to continue this where the series has left off, where I'm up to anyway. It feels like the end of an arc and we're going in a different direction, and I'm so excited to see what else this series has to offer. I adore it. If you like dragons and epic dragon battles, give it a go. Great fun. Loved it. For number 4 on my list, we are keeping in theme with the dragons, and we have got The Sky on Fire by Jen Lyons. I absolutely love Jen Lyons, so her newest book was bound to make an appearance on this list. If you didn't know, her Chorus of Dragons series that starts with The Rune of Kings is one of my favourite series of all time. So when she came out with this one as well, ooh, I was so excited, and this edition is just gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. This book follows the story of Anarod. And Anarod was exiled from the city. Anarod was presumed dead and dropped into the... what do they call it? It's like a jungle... the deep. Dropped into the deep, this jungle territory down below that no one really goes into, and she has to survive foraging there with a Titan Drake by her side. But people from her past catch up with her. She is discovered, she is found, and she is wanted. They need her help with stealing from a dragon's hoard. However, the dragon in question only happens to be the regent dragon, the leader of all dragons, the most powerful of the dragons, Never Animus, and she wants Anarod so very dead. In this world as well, there is also a school for dragon riders. The dragons do choose a human to bond with, to share their power with, to become more powerful with. There is like that give and take relationship with humans and dragons in this, where they find that perfect partnership and it makes them more powerful. We do have some characters that go through that. A couple of the people that catch up with Anarod to draw her into their plan are dragon riders, but can they be trusted? Because if they're bonded with one of the powerful dragons, why are they trying to steal from the queen dragon? What's in it for them? Can the dragons be trusted? Can the dragon riders be trusted? And where does that leave Anarod? This was beautiful. I love Jen Lyons' writing, I love Jen Lyons' world building, and I also just love how queer Jen Lyons' worlds are and just how normal that is, like not an eyelid is battered at it. I feel like it surprises a lot of people when I say that the Chorus of Dragons series is so very gay. That Jen Lyons just does that, so queer fantasy, go for Jen Lyons. I think she's very much overlooked on that front. But also just epic, beautiful world building, incredible dragons, and I really liked the human-dragon relationships in this one as well. I love Jen Lyons, 5 stars, and comes in at number 4. Number 3 on my list. We're into my top 3 reads of the year. Number 3 is The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This was so beautiful. Such a beautiful world. The landscaping, the weird, eerie atmosphere of this one was just gorgeous. This one follows the story of Dinius, and Dinius is a magically altered assistant to an investigator called Anna. Dinius is magically altered in such a way that he has an absolutely perfect memory, which is perfect for being an investigator's assistant when your investigator is Anna, who is incredibly eccentric, doesn't like to go to the scene of the crime, likes to keep herself blindfolded a lot of the time, and has some very bizarre practices. But she is incredibly good at what she does. Think Sherlock Holmes. And Anna and Dinius have a crime to solve. An Imperial officer has been found murdered at his home, but the murder is not quite ordinary. He seems to have had some sort of plant sprout from him. Is that a spoiler? No, it's not. A tree spontaneously erupts from his body, and his death is quite a gruesome scene to behold, but it turns out that he could be a very important player in this world, and linked to some very important players, as the defences in their world are breaking and leviathans are coming through. How could this murder have played a part in the bigger plot? as I say, the world here is just so beautiful. Like, it's very botanical but dark. The plant life is such an important aspect of this. Not only is it the murder weapon, but just the scenery, the way this world is constructed. It's just gorgeously dark and eerie in a botanical sort of way. Like, they're not ordinary plants, and I loved it. And also, I did not expect this to be as funny as it was, and I think a lot of that humour comes from the investigator, Anna, who is just so blunt, so to the point. She is foul-mouthed, she is very eccentric, and Dinius has to just kind of deal with it and go along with her plans and what she says, because he is her assistant, and he was lucky to become her assistant because he's had some difficulties in his past. Let's just leave it at that. But dear God, this was incredibly told and just so darkly whimsical, and I loved it, and I cannot wait for the sequel of this one, which I do have pre-ordered. But yeah, really, really dark, and mainly a murder mystery, but just a grander scheme around that murder, because it plays a bigger part in what's going on in the world around them and how their defences are falling to these Leviathan creatures that are desperate to break through. Oh, it was just so good, and I loved it. Hence why it's number 3 on this list. So bloody good. My top 2. This is difficult. This was difficult. I mean, it was difficult to rank all of these, to be honest, and a lot of them probably are interchangeable depending on what mood I'm in. But coming in at number 2, we have got The Will of the Many by James Islington. I read this very early in 2024, and I remember when I read it, I said, if I read this in 2023, it would have been my best book of 2023. And here it is, still up there in 2024, after all the incredible books I have read. This has still snagged spot number 2 in my list. This had my jaw on the floor. I will link the vlog where I read this somewhere, because my reactions to this were so physical. This had me pulling all sorts of faces and doing all sorts of expressions and actions and so on. This is, again, a murder mystery, but a murder mystery, again, that plays a part in a much bigger plot. In this world, there is an order, and depending on where you are in this pyramid scheme of order, your will is leached away from you, and will is kind of what powers everything in this world. Our main character in this, Viz, or so we think, has a secret to keep. He has a history, he has a past that he absolutely must keep buried. The hierarchy is in power for now, but will they be forever? Viz is approached by, I cannot remember the guy's name, some sort of general. He tells them that he is an orphan, he tells them that he doesn't have any family, so this guy approaches him, almost like adopts him into his family in order to send him to a prestigious military school. He has to put on this front of just being a regular student and working his way through the ranks, but really he is there to solve a murder. I don't want to say too much because I really don't want to give anything away with this one. He tells them that he is Viz. He tells them that he is orphaned after a tragic accident. He tells them that once he graduates this military school, he will gladly integrate into society, play his part, allow his will to be leached from him in the hierarchy, and he is believed. He is believed, so he is accepted into this military school, where his secret ambition is to solve a murder and to find an ancient weapon to uncover secrets that may tear the Republic apart. But in order to do that, in order to get to the point where he can find those secrets and solve that murder, he also has to rise through the ranks of the school that he's in. He has to rise through the ranks, get to the top to compete in the trials that will allow him to discover these secrets. School settings normally don't work for me. I am not usually an enormous fan of academic stories. This was so different. For whatever reason, I do not know. Well, I do know, it's that it's James Islington, and his writing is incredible. All the twists and turns, the plot twist at the end literally had my jaw on the floor. I was obsessed. I need to reread this before the next book comes out, 100%. I definitely think that I will pick up on more on reread. But it's one of those books where I think you do kind of have to go in not knowing a whole lot and have it exposed to you. Like, the blurb itself doesn't really give us a lot of the details other than he is lying about his past. We don't know what it is, but he's lying about it, and he will go along with this charade. He will try and solve this murder for this guy, but he has his own ambitions that we do not know for the most part. And then, plot twist. I loved this book so very much. And it's one that I find quite difficult to explain, and I feel like I have this with James Islington's other books as well, the Lycanius trilogy. I feel like I can never explain that either. It's just like there's so much packed into it and all tangled together, and it's so intricate that I can't explain it, you just have to read it. But number 2 on my list. And that leaves us with number 1 on my list, my favourite book of the year. And I feel like this doesn't really need any introduction. This one could well now be my favourite book of all time, and I've only read it once, which is surprising, actually. But it is Play of Shadows by Sebastian de Castell. Anyone surprised? Did anyone not see this coming? Anybody? Sebastian de Castell is my favourite author. I have loved all of his books and will probably continue to love all of his books, and this was no exception. This is the first book in the Court of Shadows series, which follows on from the Greatcoats. So we already know the history of the world politically, where we're at. And our main character in this one is Damolus, and Damolus is the grandson of a greatcoat, so he was always expected to do great things. He had a lot of pressure on him from coming from this family of greatcoats. However, Damolus' special talent is quite simply running away. He is a coward, and he will run away at every possible opportunity. So how does Damolus get himself in the situation where he's dueling with one of the best duelists out on the streets, the Vixen? And what does he do? Runs away. Cowardice runs through Damolus's veins, and he runs away from a duel with the Vixen, which means she is hot on his trail. She is gonna kill him. Apologies if the angle has very suddenly changed. I was editing this video and realised that from that point on, the audio all went funny, so it's been a couple hours. I'm back. But I was telling you about Damolus and his cowardice and the Vixen that was trying to get him. The Vixen was after him, but there is an ancient law that means that if you are part of an acting troupe, then you cannot be dragged into a duel and you cannot be killed for it. So Damolus finds a theatre, busts his way in, and declares himself part of the troupe in order to hide from the Vixen. Now, he is not a very good actor. It was not his calling, it seems. So he just picks up a little part in the play. Doesn't have many lines whatsoever. But he goes on stage and something overcomes him, and his little part turns into a bit of a monologue that takes everyone by surprise, and he somehow summons the evil spirit of the infamous murderer Archduke Corbier. Archduke Corbier, and with it reveals some long-buried secrets that may just result in some sort of rebellion. So now, with not just the Vixen trying to hunt down Damolus to kill him, but also half the country, he needs to work out what these secrets mean and what his weird ability to summon spirits on stage is all about. I love this book so very much, so getting to talk about it twice is absolutely fine with me. I really like the way that this is a different angle on the Greatcoats world. We've got all of the, like, the dueling and the sword fighting and the battles and that side of the epic in the original Greatcoat series. And then from this side, we see a different angle of the world. We've got the players, we've got the bards, and it still manages to be just as epic, just as exciting, if not more so. Still has all of the brutality and the violence that I love from Sebastian de Castell, still has his fantastic writing, his brilliant tone that I just gel with so well, whilst showing us this world from a very different angle with a very different cast of characters. But whilst also still encompassing the spirit of Greatcoats, it's still got that swashbuckling vibe that Sebastian loves so much, and I love it. I love it so much, and I think it has trumped Night Shadow as my favourite book of the series. There's certain scenes in this, like there was in Night Shadow, that have just stayed with me visually, and it's always the most brutal and violent ones, but I do think that this has trumped that, and therefore would make this my best book of all time, not just my best book of the year. So, #1 spot goes to this one. Okay, now I'm gonna redo the outro. There we have my top 10 books of the year, all ranked in some sort of order. It was really difficult to find an order for them, but there we have it. And there were definitely other 5-star reads that didn't quite make it into this top 10 list, but overall 2024 was a really positive reading year for me. I had so many brilliant books, and I love that for me. If you have read any of the books that I've spoken about today, please do let me know down below what you thought of them as well, if you also loved them, and also let me know what your #1 best book of 2024 was as well. Very curious to know, and I want all of the absolute best recommendations, so drop them down there as well. Okay, thank you very much for hanging out with me whilst I babble on about all of my favourite books. What an incredible thing to have spent my time doing. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will see you tomorrow for my worst books of the year video. If you're watching these in chronological order. If you're watching this at a different time, then I'll see you when I see you. Okay, thanks for hanging out. See you next time. Bye.